Hello, my friends, it is your brother Hampton. There is a thought among people trying to improve themselves, especially so in fitness circles, about the importance of pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. And I think this is related to the idea that we grow and we adapt to the things we push ourselves to. So if we push ourselves and we're slightly uncomfortable, like we're trying a new weight or trying a new hobby, and then eventually we become comfortable with that, then we have grown as people. And if we ever stop pushing ourselves and we stop being uncomfortable and we seek comfort, as some people say, then we stop growing. And I think this is certainly true, especially to an extent, but I think it is only part of the process of growing. There's a very important second part, which I'll talk about here, especially if you want to grow, because some things are uncomfortable for a reason, right? Some things taste bad for a reason. So a lot of poisons taste bad, but medicines also taste bad. So there are some things that we naturally don't want and we probably don't need. But then there are also some things that we don't want or we don't think we want, but after trying it, we are aware that this has helped us. Then we have grown because we've adapted to that. But there are also things that we don't want to adapt to. And we learn this through experience. When we try something, then we can know. But it's not quite just trying new things, trying new things, trying new things. And I'll illustrate it with this story because I'm writing a book on mental fitness. So the idea that we can build, it's to help people build a mindset, to help them resolve insecurities, face their fears, and overall just build a mindset that helps them pursue the goals that they want. Because a lot of people watching this right now, there is probably something you want to do in your life, and it may or may not be what you're actually doing. It may or may not be your actual job. For some people, some lucky few, they are doing what they want. They're either software, fitness, adventuring, charity, helping others in different ways. They're doing what they want and they found some way to make a living doing that, and that's wonderful. But for some people, the opportunity is there, especially as we become increasingly connected. The opportunity to do what we want is increasingly there, but we aren't able to do it. There's something blocking us from doing that. And the idea of the book is to help people get to that point to where they face some of their insecurities and they ultimately pursue the things they want to pursue. And in the book, it talks about different tools that we can use. And the book's not even out yet. So if you think it's a sales pitch, there's nowhere you can buy it. Like, it's not even done yet, but it'll be done hopefully in a few months. Well, there are different tools we can use. And I talk about things like humility, forgiveness, and introspection. And in the section I'm writing now about introspection, I discuss something that I call experiential introspection. And in there, I talk about a story, a parable kind of, that's been around different cultures. I think perhaps originally in Japan, but it's circulated around to different nations and different cultures. And the lesson isn't necessarily about introspection, but it's about a stonecutter. So how I learned it was the Japanese tale of the stonecutter. And there was a stonecutter who worked hard every day, and I can really feel it right now because it's relatively hot, and I found a shady area to film this. But I'm filming this in the summer, and he's working hard, and he's sweating every day, and he sees this merchant walking by as he's working, and the stonecutter is working, but the merchant, of course, he's adorned in beautiful clothes. He's being carried in a carriage. I'm guessing these are like medieval times, right? Shogun times. And he has people fanning him, and his overall looks a lot more relaxed. And the stonecutter looks at him and thinks, man, if I could be a wealthy merchant, that'd be great, right? I would have what I wanted. And he's like, man, I really wish I could be that merchant. And the next day he wakes up and he is the merchant, right? So he has the beautiful clothes, he has the servants, and he has wealth beyond his wildest dreams. And he lives a life for a few days like that. And he's like, this is great. This is so much better than when I was a stonecutter. He tried new things, right? And he conducts business, he has a lot of power, he has influence, he has friends, he has connections. But then one day, as he's doing this, he sees a king. And the king has everything he has and more, right? So he can command armies, he can invade nations, he can take away someone's life or livelihood and their family at a snap of his fingers. And he thinks, wow, that's actually what I want. Because I thought I wanted to be a merchant, but what I actually want is power. So I want to be that king. And the next day he wakes up and he's the king. Now, it's funny because this guy basically has superhero powers, but it's not the point and it's not really addressed. It's a parable. The next day he wakes up and he's the king. And he has his power. He can command armies with a snap of his fingers. And he has a wide harem, so he has women. And he has power and influence to affect the world, not just within the country he lives, like he did when he was a merchant, but he can now affect global politics and global situations depending on what he does. And he carries on like this for several months. He's like, man, I really enjoy being a king. This is what I was meant to be. And then one day, especially, I think it was still a hot day, and he said, man, it is really beating down. And he noticed that even though he's the king, he now still has to go to the shade. He now still has to ask people to fan him so he can survive, or at least be comfortable. And he needs to drink water because otherwise he'll die of dehydration. So he looks up and he sees the sun. He's like, man, I want to become the sun. The sun is real power. The sun can affect kings, merchants, and peasants alike just through their power, right? So the next day he wakes up and he is the sun. And he has this blazing force, and he can scorch the earth, but definitely entire nations if he wants. He can make people run into the shade. He can make people impoverished, or he can grow things. So he says, this is true power. This is much more than being a merchant, much more than being a king. I actually wanted all along, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be the sun. So this, he was the sun. But one day, he notices, as he's trying to shine upon the earth, that a cloud blocks his path. It's like, so I want to scorch this area, and the cloud is blocking me. How dare this cloud block me? Like, so this stonecutter may have some underlying psychological issues that he should probably talk to a good therapist about. But he gets upset at this cloud for blocking his path. He's, I'm trying to shine upon the earth, and here you are blocking my path. And you're raining and giving relief to the people below. People are growing their crops, and they're very happy about you. And they're unhappy about me. All I'm trying to do is scorch them, but they're unhappy about me. So I actually want to be a cloud, because I was the merchant, then I was the king, then I was the sun, but a cloud can still get in my way. So next day he wakes up. I assume he's used to this by now, but he wakes up and he's the cloud. And now he was doing everything he wants. He can block the sun as he chooses. He can provide rain, relief to people below. Interestingly, still enough, he can still flood areas, so he has power there. He said, this is true power. But one day, he's trying to be in this area. He gets blown away. It's like, so it's the wind. The wind is moving me. By the way, I know this is getting a little bit long, but this is part of the parable that I read, and he goes through a relatively long journey. He's being blown by the wind. He says, interesting. So when I was a merchant, then I was a king, and then I was a sun, and then I was a cloud, but now I'm still being blown along by the wind. And that's interesting, because I want to be able to do what I want. So what I actually want isn't necessarily power, but freedom. So next day, when he wakes up, he becomes the wind. And the wind, you have true freedom. Now he can blow clouds. Now he can move clouds along. And through that, he can provide relief, rain, shelter, or floods. Similar to when he was the cloud and when he was the sun. So he's so now I have freedom and all the power that I had before. This is true freedom and power. This is what I wanted to be. But one day he's trying to blow things. And he sees a rock. He's like, interestingly, actually it's a mountain, right? The first time I read it, it was like rock. And I was like, why would a wind be wanting to blow? But it was a mountain. He saw this mountain. He's like, so I can blow many things. I can blow over trees and forests. I can create monsoons, but I can't blow over this mountain. So this mountain that can resist the wind, and the wind can blow the clouds, and the clouds block the sun, and the sun could affect the king and the merchant. So it's really the mountain that stands tall. So it's not just freedom and power, but I also want independence and the ability to stand on my own and be unaffected by others and do what I want. So the next day, he's like, this is really what I want. I want to become the mountain. And he becomes the mountain for, I'm going to say, many centuries. So he stands there and he's happy. And then one day, he feels someone cutting into him. And it's not the wind. The wind can't blow him. But it's a stonecutter. And the stonecutter is cutting into him and chipping away at him. And this is the Hampton side note. This is actually when I realized, so that's what a stonecutter is. Because I didn't know what a stonecutter was. But apparently it's someone who mines the rocks in the mountain. And he's like, interesting. So despite this transformative journey that I've been in, really a stonecutter can defeat the mountain, that defeated the wind, that defeated the sun, that defeated the king, that defeated the merchant, that defeated the stonecutter. So next day, he says, well, I want to be a stonecutter again. And he wakes up and he's a stonecutter. And in this case, he is very soothed now. And now he's very comfortable with himself as a stonecutter. And that's the end of the story. And the story is often talked about to teach a moral about contentment, right? So whatever you think, you can type in the comments of what this story is supposed to be about. Contentment and knowing your role in life. And I think it's a great story for those values. But I found this story to be a very powerful illustration of introspection, and specifically experiential introspection. Because while this is meant to teach us about contentment and learning our role in life, I would argue that this stonecutter, even being exposed to this story, would not have the contentment and understanding of his role and the satisfaction of doing what he does without having gone through his journey. He could approximate that by reading about someone else doing that, but to truly understand, he had to experience it himself. And that's why I call it experiential introspection. And very notably, throughout his entire journey, he's always trying new things. He's pushing himself. But he subsequently rejects that new form in order to try something else. So I find this to be very important because as we're trying new things, as we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone or not, we don't always hold on to this new idea. We push ourselves, but then sometimes we say no to it. Because if we just say yes to everything, we're not being honest to our true selves. To really understand ourselves and find out what we want, we give something a serious try, and then it's a series of yes, maybe, no, I don't think so, yes, no. And there are different things that we like and there are different things that we dislike that make up who we are. And this is how we discover our true selves. And this is how we really push ourselves out of our comfort zone. So I mentioned there was a missing piece to pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And that missing piece is after you push yourself out of your comfort zone and you give something a serious try, you can then decide whether to hold on to that new idea or to reject it and move on to something else. And by doing so, we learn to not only push ourselves out of our comfort zone, but a better way to phrase it that I like is to expand our comfort zone. Because if we like something new and we acclimate to it and we adapt it and we adopt it, then we are now comfortable with that and we've expanded the things that we're comfortable with. And there are still other things that we don't like that we may take on in the future, but then there are also some things that we will never take on in the future that we don't like and we don't need. So let's talk about some real world examples and how we can apply this to our lives. So we've discussed the value of experiencing and trying new things. So let's go through some things that a lot of us try at some point in our lives. So music is one. A lot of parents, a lot of friends eventually encourage us to try music to some extent. So some of us think, maybe if I try guitar, I'll decide I really like it and I'll become a very good guitarist. And I'll try piano or try singing and I'll go through a little bit of work and I'll become very good at it. And I think a lot of us are drawn to music because many of us like music. We like listening to it. Playing it often takes hundreds, if not thousands of hours of practice to get good at it. So it's whether or not we want to go through that journey. But let's say we try playing a few instruments and we think, while I do like music, it may not be the thing for me. I gave it a try, I gave it a fair shake, I put in time, I put in lessons. I just don't have the passion to really pursue it the way that I see how some other people do, which is fine. So we move on to something else. Another thing that a lot of us talk about is, a lot of us try, is cooking. So most of us, all of us, I believe, need to eat. So a lot of us try cooking at some point, even if it's something basic like toast or eggs or cutting up fruit. And let's say we do try cooking and we really like it in this case, just hypothetically. Not only do we like it, but we decide we want to make it our job because we like studying recipes, trying new ingredients, making our own recipes. And we especially like it when we spend a lot of time cooking, baking, and prepping, and we give the food to our friends and family and people waiting for it, and we see their faces light up. We really enjoy that. We want to make people happy through food. So we take this as our job. But then we keep trying new things, right? We try new things within cooking, and eventually you come across fitness. You want to be more fit, you either want to be stronger, or you want to be more muscular, you want to lose some weight. And let's say you don't like fitness. And I use fitness as an example, just in case you don't know. My main work right now is fitness media. So I make fitness videos, and my other channel is a fitness channel. So let's say we try that. And we don't like fitness. We gave it the same fair shake we gave cooking and music. But we just don't like it as much as we like cooking. We prefer to cook. We don't really like to work out. We've tried different things. So in this case, it's actually a little bit different because we can live without music and cooking. We can listen to music and other people can cook for us. But most of us need some level of physical activity to be the healthiest that we can be. It doesn't have to be a serious gym workout, but exercise is good for us, right? So we should exercise to some extent, and most of us are aware of that. But we can still learn from this. We can still learn from pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone and trying to expand our comfort zone, even just to close it later on to fitness. But also the things like brushing our teeth and doing our taxes, which are other things that most of us need to do at some point in our lives, but don't necessarily enjoy doing. Some of us may enjoy brushing our teeth, doing our taxes, and some of us may even enjoy fitness and even make a YouTube channel about it, but not everyone does. We can still benefit by learning to limit and learning to tackle it in small bursts. Because doing things that we may not necessarily enjoy the most is part of life. That's part of our discipline, that's part of our hard work. And we can still have many things in our life, and we can still primarily focus on the things that we enjoy, but we can also learn to understand that there are some things we may not enjoy as much, and we can deploy that strategically. We'll brush our teeth every day, we'll exercise a few times a week, just enough to meet our goals and get what we want, and we do our taxes a few times a year. This is just part of life, and from there we can continue to experiment. Some people decide they don't like exercising, or they thought they didn't, but they actually really like exercising with a friend or family, and it's a good way to connect and socialize in some ways, even if it's just going for a walk and then going to the gym together. Some people really enjoy that. But we get to that point by trying new things, and even if we reject that new thing, now we can move on to different alternatives, different options in order to better craft a life for us. Because we want to go through life with an open mind, right? A lot of us think we do. We want to be open-minded about things. But it's also very important after we open our mind to try a new idea, to perhaps close it around that, and then later on either reject it and let it go. So we really want to go through life with a sometimes selectively open mind to try new things so we can be open to almost everything, but we don't have to be everything. There are some things that we can reject, and this is part of crafting a happier, more fulfilled life for us. Because in the Stonecutter's Tale, I think it's very notable that throughout the entire journey, the long journey, he is constantly changing physical forms. He becomes the merchant, the king, the sun, the clouds, the wind, the mountain, and then back to the stonecutter again. So he's changing physical forms every few days, right? Every part of the story. But at the end, his physical form is the same. And what's really changed is his mental state and his mindset. So throughout changing his physical form and trying new things over and over again, even just to reject them, and even though he came back to the same place, he now understands himself better. His mindset has changed. And I think that many of us are like the stonecutter. We're not becoming new things and trying to destroy the earth and trying to destroy other people and control other people, but we're trying new things. And we're going through a similar experiential journey where we're trying new things, even if just to reject them, and even if we end up in the same spot, even if we are the same people, which most of us keep the same physical form, our mindset has changed. And the more we understand ourselves, the better decisions we can make for ourselves, and the happier, more fulfilled, and more expressive we can be. Thank you so much for listening. If you're curious about the book, I'm really excited to write it. I hope it can help a lot of people. I'll leave a link in the description where you can sign up and get emails about updates, and I'll let you know when it's out. I'm really excited to do more of these videos, and I appreciate all of you for being here. Have a beautiful day.